I'm Lexy Davis, a love embodiment coach who helps people create a love that feels like home, and I'm here to bring more romance and playfulness into the world. I'm also an international retreat host, vibe curator, and human connector. I serve people through my business, Alive to Enjoy, and this podcast where I invite guests from around the world to sprinkle their wisdom and expand your perspective so you can create the deepest love you possibly can reach in this lifetime. I also want you to live the most joyous life, whatever that looks like to you, and I hope that this slice of the internet brings you lots of smiles and helps you keep your heart open. Thank you for choosing Heart Snuggles to be in your ears each week, and I'm so glad you're here with me. Welcome, Heart Snugglers. So happy you're here today with us. I brought Morgan, a beautiful friend of mine who I'm so excited to share her with you guys. And yeah, we're going to have a beautiful conversation. She just visited in Portugal recently, and now she's back in Hawaii. But go ahead and tell them about yourself.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. It's really nice to talk with a friend. I feel like a lot of these podcasts all come on as like this little professional thing, but I think we get to have a little more of a fun riff today. So I'm Morgan. I'm a therapist. I have a degree in cognitive neuroscience, wellness, and human biology. And I also have a master's degree in clinical mental health with an emphasis in somatic therapies. And I'm the creator, counselor, and coach behind Mind's Eye Guidance. And yeah, it's been a wild ride. I would not have thought I'd be where I am. And a lot of that's due to a model that I created called the Seven Center System. Yeah, changed my life, and now I share it with others around the world. So specialize a lot in nervous system regulation, somatic work, but also just helping people balance their health holistically and optimizing routines and yeah, all that fun stuff. So it's good to be here. I'm excited to see where this conversation takes us.
Oh, me too. Her work's amazing, so you guys need to check it out. All right, so the first question of the podcast, what was the last random act of kindness someone did for you?
What a great question. Hmm. When I was walking the other day, someone gave me an orange.
Aw.
Just randomly. Yeah, it was very sweet. Yeah. What a joyful moment of just interaction and eye contact and a stranger. Here's an orange. Thank you.
That's cute. That's very
People
Hawaii.
are very cute. Yeah, very Hawaii.
But not just there, but yes. There's so much orange theme in my life. I had another friend too, where her neighbor dropped off like a whole box of oranges for her.
Oh, okay. I don't know what I know there's animal medicine. I wonder if there's fruit and food
Orange.
medicine that like what does that mean?
Only around joy, it feels like. Okay, and the next question is, what truth about love did you learn the hard way that you wish someone would have told you about?
What truth about love did I learn the hard way? Ooh, love's got a lot of hard lessons, huh? Mm, yeah, just that it's not guaranteed ever. Like, you don't know the timeline of it. And if you got it, thank it profusely while it is there, while it is present, because as you get older, you recognize that it's always fleeting. And even if you know it as it is right now, it might not be the same tomorrow or the next day. Even if it's like a long-term relationship, there's still something so special if you're sharing that love with another person. But yeah, there's something so special, or even with yourself. I was thinking about that a lot I've been doing a lot of reviewing of my life over the last like years. I just finished a very big journal that I've had for years, and yeah, that was something I was really reflecting on for myself, even like the love that I've had with myself over long periods of time is not always the same. Like, there is a change in a like a novelty to like, wow, the love that I had at that time with myself was very sweet and pure, or like it's different than it is now. And I
Mm.
don't know, there's something that we need to acknowledge in the moment. It's like, wow, this is not going to be here forever in the way that it is, and to appreciate that more. I think. So learned that the hard way, but hopefully we learned from it. Yeah.
I think that's so beautiful. And we always need the reminder to just bring gratitude into each moment, each day, because we can just get so swept away with what we want more of or the future. And it's just been a big theme. I was just at a pleasure workshop, and one thing I reflected on was just like pleasure is in every moment. I'm the one that's stopping myself from just receiving each moment more.
Mm.
So I really love that.
Those are
And
great questions.
thanks. I would love to hear about your journey of how you got your business to where it is now, just like what made you inspired to start this.
Hmm. Well, honestly, I had to be convinced a little bit if you were to ask me. Well, so I started about a little over 3 years ago, which is also just wild to think about how time flies and just how much is possible that you don't even dream about, like things that I just wouldn't have predicted that I'd be where I am. And I had a really good friend that I worked with in residential treatment that had seen me work in the space and just felt like a lot of the things that I would share and just who I was naturally, she just thought that I had something that she was like, I wish that you shared more with more people. Like, I don't really, and she wanted me to do social media. It's like, no. And at the time I had to convince myself because they said, well, I can see that I have the skill sets to do it. And it felt like infiltrating in that space to where it's like if you were to ask me even today, it feels very paradoxical, right? To help people with their mental health and holistic health and then to be online. I feel like it's one of the worst things that you can really do for your health overall. And so I had to convince myself if you're gonna if you're gonna help people, you have to go where they are.
Mm.
And so she really was a big part and is now my business partner in convincing me to say, let's make something here. And yeah, the more momentum I got with that, the more that, and at that point I had been already doing my own, the model, the seven center system that I've built. I had been doing that in my own life and I had been doing it with my private practice clients. And we had talked about what it would be like to offer that to more people because it was working really well for folks. And so one thing led to another, and I just decided as a kind of fun creative project. Really, I didn't expect to get anywhere with it, to be honest. I just said, I wonder where this would go. And so I decided to post one reel a day for 30 days. And by the end of that 30 days, it changed to 60, changed to 90. And then I did it for a whole year because I really liked the challenge of it. And it was a way to channel my creativity. It didn't feel like I was trying to get to an outcome or a certain number of followers or anything like that. And yeah, by the end of that year, I had over 100,000 followers. I was like, okay. And then it just kept going. And yeah, here we are. So it's been an interesting ride because as a therapist and as somebody that's in this work, you don't go to business school. There's a whole process, and I like to tell because now I do business coaching as well, and it's like therapy elevated. It's like therapy plus to be a business owner. Like an entrepreneur has the biggest mirror in front of you that I've ever experienced. I mean, that's saying a lot. I've been in therapy since I was 15. I've been through all my training, all my education. I've gone to therapy for a long time and have dedicated myself to a lot of self-development work. And being an entrepreneur has been the most potent journey of you just can't hide from your patterns. And
Yeah.
so now when I offer business coaching, it feels like therapy elevated in some ways because you just can't hide from it. And so, yeah, that's a bit of the journey. Yeah, it's a wild thing to reflect on.
Yeah, it's so cool. I never asked you that before. And I love that the key element was just you were just creating and you weren't, attached to anything. And I feel like nowadays it's the most common thing to be so attached to what's the result? Da, 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 da. And so that surrendered process is what made it happen. And your commitment, you were very committed to showing up every day and providing value, which is beautiful and something I struggle with.
Mhm. Yeah, there's definitely days I did not feel like it, and it was commitment to essentially the promise that I had made to myself and the challenge that I made to myself and just the sake of saying that I could and kind of proving it to myself. But you're on point that the surrender to it was also nowadays I even say that like a lot of this isn't to make a name for myself. Like I don't really care about any of that or like fame or like whatever. It actually just feels like I'm a conduit. It's hard to describe, but it's like this thing that I'm supposed to be stewarding. And there's times where I want to give up it. There's times where I'm like, like what's the point? And then there's a bigger tug where it's like, well, if you ran away from that, it would feel actually against your purpose a
Yeah.
little bit. Like it would feel it would feel not right at a deeper level. But the giving up part is not aligned. And I feel like there's a surrender element to that, that I'm being led at a bigger, deeper level, that I'm just the steward of this thing versus it being based in, and I don't really like the word ego that much. It gets really misconstrued, but it's not from a place of wanting to have a particular agenda or something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in complete service. So beautiful.
Mhm.
And I'd love for you to share, I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs listening, of how you can stay committed through the ups and downs of relationship. I know you went through a big breakup and, it's very hard to continue to show up in the same way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oof, so much. So, yeah. There was a time that my mom came and visited me after the breakup happened. I was a puddle in the beginning. Let's just be honest about that. Like it's not it's not like I was just like, okay, great, we're moving on and it was a long-term relationship. It yeah, really floored me in a lot of ways. And there was this one time that I remember that I was just crying with her and then piece myself up and then get on a like a group call that I had. And it's just this skill set, I think, to a certain extent of, like you said, being in service that I can change into being a conduit and know that there's a bigger pull to that. And of course, there's been a couple of times where I've canceled things, but there's some skill set I think that I have to switch over and say, this is not about me right now. Like this is about a bigger service, a bigger calling that I have, that I can hurt and I can have this. And so maybe that's one of the skills that you learn as a therapist or as somebody that just does a lot of the work of like hold, and I know you've done a lot of that too, of like holding the full spectrum of things, to where it's like I am grieving, but I can also help someone at the same time. Or I like what can coexist. And a lot of that, I think nervous system regulation helps a lot, and being able to, yeah, lean into the safety that you still have despite having the challenge and big, hard emotions. Yeah. I don't know. What do you do? What's your what's your secret sauce of staying committed?
Well, I was funny because yesterday at that polyvagal training, I asked Deb, I'm like, how is it that when you're having like a bad day, or there's so much happening in your life, but then when you sit down for your clients, it's like you just are so lit up. You have all this life, you're able to give so much. And she's like,
Mm.
well, one, it's your responsibility. You have this like sense of responsibility that really allows you to, I don't know, be that channel again and just be there for that person. And then I was talking to some of the other therapists there and doctors, and they were just saying that they experienced the same thing, and that it gives us life to do this job. Like I always feel so much better after I give a session to someone, or do a group call, no matter what my day is going. So it's, and then one of the therapists, I guess in IFS, there's this saying where it's like, you need therapy if you need like 30 hours of work a week, because your work is your therapy. And
Oh, nice. Yeah.
and I was like, that's true, because like I feel so good when I'm working. So
Hmm. Yeah. That's a really interesting, I'm as I'm reflecting on it, it's there's that balance, right? Because anything can be done out of a healthy amount. Because if I was also being honest, work can be a safe place for me. It can be an escape. And so there is that balance of making sure that you also deal with it at the end, right? That there's not a continuous suppression, because I'm also really big on recognizing the ways that we initiate pendulum swings. Because when we suppress, it's like that internal physics that you pull it to one side, and it's when it lets go, when the dams burst, it just explodes. And then we build this relationship at times around like, I'm not safe with myself, I'm not safe with my emotions, I can't feel, and now I'm in survival mode. Or we associate feeling things and our emotions with a negative stimulus because, oh, there was a negative outcome, but where in reality it was the suppression and the pendulum swing that was really the thing that we need a negative association around, but we don't often click those things together. And so I'm saying that because for folks, and I know there's a lot of very heart-centered, caring people out there that care so much about others, and then they put themselves in the background, or they don't have their own emotions, they don't feel it. And then it can just be this big pendulum swing back and forth that they're giving so much and offering so much, and then they don't give to themselves and they're not doing their own work. And I'm big on saying you can only take others as far as you've gone yourself. So really making sure that you keep yourself in check, because if not, you're going to burn yourself out. You're not going to be able to be of service. And so that's another big part of it that I've had to keep myself in check on, because it can feel so nice. It's like when you go to sleep. If one of the worst things about a breakup, or like if you're grieving and you're challenged and you like cry yourself to sleep, and then you're like, oh, sleep is really nice. Like I think that there's a certain release in the same way with work. And so you've got to be like in a balance with it.
Yeah.
So mhm.
Yeah, that pendulum is so important. And yeah, the old tendencies of I had so much people pleasing where there was no me in the equation ever. And especially as people that have these businesses that are heart-centered, it's so easy to get lost in just giving to others. And I mean, this is obviously a principle I teach a lot about, is how to receive, because we're not really taught how to receive, and we're so good at giving and taking initiative. So I love this element. And what I would love to hear, what else supported you during the breakup process?
Hmm. Some of it's just validating that it's okay to feel fully and to know that it's just the other side of the coin. Like, of course, you grieve hard, you love really hard, and having it be okay that it has a timeline that you can't control too. It's really one of those things that it comes in waves, and you can feel so good some days, and then other days a little trigger shows up, and like I don't even know. Like I remember this one time I had made key lime pie cups, and it just like I've been great. And then I made those, and it was this small thread that I had had from the previous relationship that just, and you just never know when a trigger is going to come out. And so also just having compassion with when they do, it's like, okay, we, it's here and we know how to get through this. And there's definitely times where that faith can kind of waver. And you've had a really big part in that as well, of leading back to a relationship with God and a divine force that's like, hey, I got you too.
Mm.
And it's not, you don't have to figure it all out. It's not, there's not a rhyme or a reason to it sometimes in a human brain, but when you kind of release to a bigger, yeah, trust that it's working the way it needs to. And so sometimes I would need evidence of that, maybe from my past, to really believe in that and say, oh yeah, remember that one time that you thought that previous partner that was like your soulmate? Remember when this next person was actually even better than what you could have dreamed before? And then having this trust that you're in a transformation during that time, and that, yeah, you just don't see it until you're looking back on it. So that has also really helped, this bigger surrender and bigger trust and developing that relationship to knowing that there's something going on. There's a deeper rendering happening.
Yeah, even with that knowing, I during my last breakup, I struggled so much with that. It's like that truth was there, and yet my body couldn't match that truth. And so there was just this constant pendulum of, I know that this is happening, and I know, I have to surrender to this, and then the mind with the stories. And so it's definitely a battle, and to have those a couple of anchors you just described, I think. Yeah, I actually created a holding heartache masterclass, and in that I created like a heart savior kit where it's like all these little things to just prepare yourself and to lean back on, like people to call, resources, little things, because in those moments it can just feel so alone and overwhelming and confusing, and there's, so many flavors of grief. And
Mhm.
I think the only way through it is to know, like, to resource yourself in many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's your rational mind can just get in the way of miracles a lot of the time, because for context, my relationship was incredible. It was secure, it was beautiful. It, I mean, all the things to where I don't have much to anchor onto around, like, oh, he was a bad person, or oh, we were toxic, or oh, it didn't make sense. And it did in a lot of ways. And at a deeper level, I've had even mentors tell me it sounds like divine intervention that you're not together, because there is a bigger something that you wouldn't have left it.
Yeah.
Like that, and there's a bigger trust in because there'll be times where I'm like, oh, well, like I couldn't ever find someone, like the rationale comes in and says like, oh, I couldn't find someone else like that. Where at a deeper level, I also know that miracles happen all the time, but if we get in the way of them, we can't really like we have to surrender a little bit to the rendering process to match us with the miracle that's coming.
Mhm.
So yeah, having proof of magic and miracles is also a part of it, I think.
Yes. Yes, it's a huge part. And I also, yeah, I want to go into this because my last relationship was really healthy too. And I think this is where there's so much misconception around breakups and like breakup equal horrible, hate your ex, da 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 da. And so I think we need to just open up the conversation a lot more around it. And like even me personally, I ended up doing a love ceremony at the end and made it this like beautiful process where we stayed in so much love throughout the whole time. And which also made that hard because then there's like more feelings coming up. But I feel so much better ending in that way. So, anyways, I'd love to hear like how you're able to, yeah, end even though it was so healthy.
Hmm. Well, to be honest, it wasn't really my choice. Like I didn't want it to, and there's still times where that comes up to where it's like this isn't my choice. Like I didn't want to do this. And there's a bigger, deeper respect of love and knowing someone's path and knowing that you don't know the bigger picture. It's a deep respect for the other person to say, I get that this is your truth. This is what you need. I don't understand why. And you don't even understand why to a deeper level. And so there is a surrendering, but a deep respect and love in that space. And yeah, I don't know what the future will hold with it. I would love for there to be some more ceremonial aspects around it or things like that. And it's really beautiful when that can be that way. The previous relationship that I had had, that I had, like, oh my gosh, this is it, before this one. And also, again, very healthy, very beautiful. And it's really hard to get over those relationships. And I will just say, in contrast, this breakup that I've been going through for the last little bit, or healing from, really, I'm thinking about the previous one. I actually stayed in a lot of contact, and we stayed friends for a long time. And actually, I think that hurt my healing time because I never actually let him go. I remember that there were these waves of grief, or not in the same way that this one is, but it would almost be like I would talk to him on the phone all the time. I would still have all these connections. And I remember even many years after, it felt like once we finally stopped talking and once he had gotten a new partner, once there was this new stage of the relationship, I remember feeling like, oh, we've actually broken up now. And so I think that there's got to be a balance. So this newest relationship that we've not been together, the the breakup process has been a lot more like clean cut of like, okay, we're not gonna talk for a while, and like that's out of respect and out of love. That's like that's what you need and that's what I need, and having it be like the boundaries are respected. Yeah, and that's a new thing that I've tried because I've tried that kind of
Mhm.
like, oh, we're gonna stay in contact, we're gonna be friends still, we're gonna do this. And yeah, I wanted to try it out and see if it could speed up the healing process. And so far it has been, I think, needed. So yeah. But
I
everybody's different. So
Everybody is different. And I highly, highly recommend it because same, my last relationship, we tried to continue talking and it was like recutting the wound over and over again until we finally were like, no, we have to stop talking. And that is
yeah.
when I could fully, I mean, it still took me a year and a half with that one, but it actually allowed me to start really detaching and letting go once the communication ended. And now we're in communication again and it feels there's nothing there. So,
Mhm.
with all my clients, I definitely recommend at least some space from them because
Absolutely.
I don't know how you can't let that old dynamic die without, space.
Yeah, and something that I've really appreciated, I have a good friend who's a breakup and healing coach, and he's really talented at what he does. And one of the things that has really stuck with me from his teachings is that it's just like one plus one equals two, you and your ex equals a breakup. So if you don't allow yourself to truly let that form of you die and allow that dynamic between you actually be put to rest, no matter what, like you're not going to have a more positive outcome in a matter of months. Like, have you actually changed? Have they actually changed? Has the dynamics actually changed? And so really seeing whatever breakup as a catalyst for change and the need to grow as an individual, but also maybe as a couple. Who knows? I'm not saying that you're going to get back together, but if there is any chance of that, there does need to be change that happens, or else you're just gonna get into the same outcome. And so that has also been helpful for me in terms of maintaining the distance to say, I know that, and even if it's not toxic, even if it's not something that there's these, it just, we know that it's going to lead to not being the right alignment and right match. And so focusing on yourself at that time and saying, what in me needs to be realigned, needs to be shifted, and not as like I'm a project now that I like need to change my whole self, but we lose ourselves a certain amount when we're in relationship and we end up knowing who we are with that other person. Like, how can I come back into myself? And yeah, and then who knows, like it could come back together or it could not. And either way, it's a win-win, right? Is that if you come back together, great, you have both done the work that you need to do to have a different outcome, or you're feeling great and in alignment and leveled up in a way that you weren't before.
Yes, that's 100% everything I also agree with. And I think one of the biggest parts of that letting go is the identity process of the future visions and who you were with him or them and who you are now. And it's an identity crisis, really, like the breakup
Absolutely.
process.
Mhm.
So taking time for that and for you and also like trying to bring that energy of constantly focusing on your ex and back to yourself. And that was a practice I really had to do as well because my attention kept going to him or all the reasons I could have done something better. And that is also a really hard loop because I mean, I'm such a growth-minded person. I went immediately into relationship stuff and I wanted to learn everything. And then I was like, I did this wrong, and this and this and this and this and this and this. And then I would find myself messaging him like, I'm so sorry that I did this. And then I just felt like a big old shame puddle. And so that's also,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Oh, I feel you. I wish I had better. That one feels close to home, so I'm like, yep. What'd you do to get out of that? Share your wisdom.
It was a lot of forgiveness, like self-forgiveness, and just the classic, like you did the best you could in that moment with what you do. Like, and we've heard that many times, and I just had to keep leaning in the fact that like, okay, now I have these skills. Now I'm gonna really integrate this knowledge, and a lot of the things I was learning is understanding men. So it was like, how can I use these with men that are just in my life or just strangers, and how can I, these qualities that I was lacking or whatever, just bring it into my life and my current relationships, friendships, people like that, and just transmute it that way because it just became really heavy to just see myself in such a dark way, and I'm always one to take almost too much responsibility. So
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I think that's a trap because we have if we can control it, then maybe we can change the outcome. And so, of course, we're going to make it our fault. We're going to bring it into a realm of, of control and really clinging onto this thing. But in reality, we can't change the past. And so I love that you channeled that new information into the present because if we can feel that, then we can amplify that and then change the future of it. But we can't change the past of it. And while that's hard for your heart to really compute that, there it sounds like having an ability to practice it in your current relationships was something that helped you feel like, okay, well, in this current moment, at least this is the control that I can have versus trying to yeah, that's like you can't change the past. You just really can't. So yeah, thanks for that. I'll take that nugget in the times that I need it the most.
Yes, yes, the control piece is so big because that's it. It's like I could have it's all my fault. Like that's a belief I've always had too,
Mm.
that. So yeah, just also recognizing like it was not serving me doing that either. Like it was making me feel really, really heavy. And then
Mm.
something else I did was just share that with my friends and had them reflect back like how amazing of a person I am. And just because I made those mistakes. So honestly, hearing affirmation back from people allowed me
Mm.
to like remember who I actually am, and I'm not just this piece of shit that my
Yeah.
mind made me feel in that last relationship.
Absolutely. And it takes two to tango. We hear that, but it's something that we put a lot of I at least I know for myself, and I share a lot of what you're saying, that I put a lot of responsibility on myself. I'm like, oh, if I would have done this. But also there was another person in that equation, and this is something that I really very vulnerable to share, but I recognize that I really loved him and I loved our relationship and I loved the life we built together, but I didn't really love myself
Mm.
in that at a deeper level. Like I didn't love who I was. And sometimes that's not because of who you are. That's because of who you are with that person. That's because of who you are in the life that you've created together. And at a deeper level, like that is probably the reason, the bigger downfall, right? So of course it creates things to look back on to say like, oh, I didn't really like that I did it that way, but also recognize that it's because of the chemistry and the combination of the life and the dynamics and the things that were created out of the two of you coming together, or more than one if you're in a relationship that has multifaceted things. There's so many different types of relationships now, but knowing that that unique chemistry that comes together is the result of how you were then,
Mm.
because that's not a reflection of who you are at a deeper level. That's who you are with that person or people.
Uncoupling or breakups do not need to be horrific and ugly, but they can be the most beautiful unwinding of a union. And you get to decide if you're going to let this heartbreak hold you back from love or open you wider to an even greater love and ability to choose yourself. And if you desire to shift this archaic way of ending relationships and instead be a leader in love, then I invite you to join my Holding Heartache Masterclass so you can remain in love, trust, and integrity with your heart. And this will be a powerful way to close out that chapter with your past lover, to somatically feel through the tough emotions and create a solid foundation of support to hold you through the process of grief and letting go. You'll get a clear, reliable, and comforting kit of resources and tools so that you never feel alone or stuck during this process. And I created this masterclass so you'll feel empowered to make it through the painful process and come out the other end anchored in truth and more rooted in love. I want to remind you that your heart isn't broken, you're being opened wider, and thus you're being able to feel more alive. So if you'd like to access the Holding Your Heartache Masterclass with me, Lexi Davis, head to the show notes and sign up. Huge.
I think that's helped me a lot too.
Yes, I love that. And that was what I used to work as a psychologist assistant in Australia. And she told me, like, your relationships are your biggest mirrors, and like what mirror do you want to look in? And that was a really big reflection because yes, some people, and goes with even friendships, right? It's like, what version are they constantly bringing out? And let's be real, every deep relationship is also going to bring out the worst parts of you. But what's the consistent reflection you're getting? And yeah, it really
Mm-hmm.
is important to notice what people bring out in you.
I heard someone say this online that goes along with that of she had said, I don't date now to get to know other people. I date them to get to know myself.
Mm.
And I think that there's a great way of mindset really in going into dating to saying what part of me shows up in this scenario, like how do I feel about myself in this, because you can have a whole checklist of the things that you think you want, because again that last partnership, and I think for both of us we stayed in it for a long time. Like I said, there's divine intervention because it was like we both were like, this makes sense on paper, like all of this makes sense, like we love each other, it's healthy, it's good, but then like at a deeper level it wasn't right for whatever reason,
Yeah.
right? And it's like because the mirror I was looking into wasn't didn't light me up in the way that like I loved myself. I loved him. I
Mhm.
loved the situation, right? But I didn't love the reflection that was coming back at me. And so that's equally as important, if not more important, than if you love somebody else, right?
Yes.
It's like how do you feel? Because your relationship's the longest one that you'll ever have,
Well,
right? So if you are betraying that deeper relationship to yourself, it's not going to feel good, and you might have shame in those other emotions that come out. Like when you're reflecting back on it, it's like, oh, I didn't like who I was. Like,
Mm.
not because of who you are, but because of what was coming up in that moment, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And then just to add nuance, because there always is. So that statement of
Mhm.
that when you're saying that quote you heard of like you're dating not them, but like who, what was it? Say it again.
You're not dating to get to know someone else, you're dating to get to know yourself.
Yes.
Hmm.
And with like nervous system perspective, it's there are also so many elements happening there where it's like we have the fawning, we have these pieces that we've
Mm.
been taught of what a relation, how we need to show up in relationship to just, I mean, be, but that is our way of receiving love and affection and all these things. So there's so many layers when there's obviously trauma in it too, and it's both and, you know.
So yeah, because to that I would say notice, am I in a fawn state? Because if that is happening, it's an indication that maybe there is a deeper need for safety that I'm having reflected back to me. And again, like you said, there's nuance. We can't just like solve all the all the things right now. I wish that that would make our jobs a lot easier. But there is, again, it's a reflection of like, okay, I notice that I am fawning in these relationships. Is this with this one person because they're not making me feel safe? Or is this a larger thing that I need to be looking at for myself of I need to work on regulating my nervous system so that I can meet secure attachment when it shows up, so that I'm not fawning and that I can feel my authentic self. Because I know that I am like the reflection that I love is whenever I'm my authentic, like I can dance, I can sing, I can laugh, I can have fun, but it's not from a place of survival. It's from a place of I feel safe enough with you to be myself.
Mhm.
And there might be some pre-work that you need to do ahead of time to do that with anyone. But there are certain people that bring that out more than others.
Yeah.
And there are also people that bring out the survival states as well. So noticing that too.
Yes, so good. Knowing your nervous system is obviously both of our core of our work. Why it's so essential. You can learn everything about yourself and about who's really good for you by understanding your own nervous system. And let's say, just to like break this down even more, let's say you are having a fawning moment. Can you just even verbalize it to that person of, oh, I'm noticing that? Or, if that feels true, that you can, have this conversation with them and just seeing how they hold it. And there's so many directions you can take it. You can also just self-reflect and, like you said, see if this is something I'm doing in all my relationships or this is something I just do in romantic relationships. And yeah, I just think that the key element here is understanding, am I in a survival state or am I in a regulated state? And what makes me feel safe and how can I, look for those qualities outward and we're always going to get triggered no matter what in relationship, but it's being able to navigate that with that partner.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And something else I wanted to chat about that was really hard for me too is when you have your own business is this the vulnerability piece of going through a breakup and the shame that comes with that as someone that, guides people and whatnot. So how has that been for you?
Mm. Yeah, I definitely struggled with it in the beginning. And there's still times where I'll feel like, oh, I don't know if like imposter is the right word, but it kind of can trigger that thread a little bit of, oh, I'm supposed to be this example of a healed, healthy, regulated human, and here I am having a wave of grief that's really challenging to move through. But something that's really helped me in those times, well, two different things, is one, showing up authentically has really validated for other people that you don't like healing isn't linear. You're human no matter who you are, no matter how much you know, no matter how practiced you are, no matter what certifications and all
Yes.
the th education that you have, like you're human at a deeper level. And I think that humanizing myself and allowing myself to be who I am and show what's happening for me is it actually deepens my credibility because it's like, hey, I can move through this. Like this is proof that something really challenging can happen and I can still show up.
Mm.
And I've even thought about that as well because I have a whole model that I teach people and whenever I think about it, it's like, wow, this model that I do and this routine that I have is the reason why I move through a lot of this stuff. Like, of course, I have friends like you and I have people that support me in these times and other pieces, but this huge foundational scaffolding that I hold on to
Mm.
that has also been really, so then I can feel even more conviction in what I offer because I'm like, no, this really works. Like during the hardest times, I've had to be like, oh, well, what do I even do? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I have this thing to lean into. And that has also been helpful, I think, to channel some of that at times to be like, I'm having a hard time and I have this solution. And I think that it's a win-win because I can maintain the business part of things of like, hey, I'm helping other people. I'm offering service to say this thing that I've created works and helps, and it's helping me at the same time. However, it's really challenging to be vulnerable. It's really hard to be seen, and that's kind of why it's therapy plus, because it's gonna show up of, and that's been a huge thing throughout my life is that I've been more of the stoic personality being growing up. Like it's been only in the last through this process of needing to be seen through being online, have I become less stoic and more, hey, look, I'm crying, or hey, I don't have it all put together. I'm not perfect. Like, here's these things that I've had to really just like work through out of necessity because of this, like, because of this deeper calling. So, yeah. I don't know if you wanted to share anything around that of, what you've done or yeah, I don't know. Were you running a business at the time of your
Hmm.
breakup?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
was all up online about
you're
it.
in it.
For those
Yeah.
who are, my people that were following me then, it was maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I don't even know now, but I yeah, it's very similar. Like first, it was like all this shame because I was also, just starting to teach on relationships. So then I'm like, okay, I'm a failure. No one's gonna trust me and my knowledge, and just so much around that came up. And then I was in grief. Like I made a post even 4 months straight. I was crying every single day. And then the first day I got broken up with, I was leading a retreat. So I like got the text
Mm.
as I'm leading a retreat and this is when I was doing Kundalini activations. And so I'm like energy healing, giving energy healing in the space. And I just have a massive breakdown and it was actually recorded. Again, I posted it online, like me bawling my eyes out in front of everyone as I'm trying to
Mm.
give them. But that stimulated them to cry and, access
Right.
those pieces of grief in themselves. And the only reason I was able to access that is from Tina. Tina is one of my favorite mentors I've ever had. She was just a friend, but she was 50, she's in her 50s, and I met her in Australia. And anyways, she is the biggest permission slip. Like in every single one of her classes, she was so raw and vulnerable, and everyone would just feel so moved and connected and could feel so deeply. And it was so inspiring to just watch how authentic she was. And it's forever been my anchor. And like, okay, I actually get to break down right now. Like, I felt when he texted me that, I felt it. And then I was like, the part of me that was like, no, 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 hold it together. And the other part of me was like, there's no way. Like, just let it rip. And anyway,
Mm.
so throughout the process, I was really online, like, yeah, showing myself crying and just the, waves of grief and explaining it because yeah, it makes us feel connected. Yeah, the humanness of it is essential. And the industry, I mean, I think people that only consume can sometimes pedestal people and think that because they're teaching this or they're in this industry that they need to be perfect. And in reality, it's like no one is. Even if we have this knowledge, it doesn't excuse us from the human experience. And you know that when you're guiding and facilitating or, a teacher in any way. And yeah, I mean, before I was this, I thought that about,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
the,
And I think about the whole saying of like you teach most what you want to learn. Like a lot of us, I often say like if you can tell what does someone have a specialty in, they've needed to learn that themselves. Like there's a reason why they're in that. Like if you have a therapist that's a somatic therapist, like they probably have been very ungrounded in their body and they like found that and was like, whoa, and now I have to teach it to other people because of how much I needed to learn this in life. So yeah, I love that. And I love your permission slip example because that is huge. And as healers and people that host space for other people, I think we like to have all the answers and have it put together and have this certain thing where in reality we're humans. Like we're not these perfect little robot creatures that's not how we help people all the time is to have these logical answers. It's sometimes to role model. We learn through role modeling and we learn through, and there's a culture, I wish I knew what it was off the top of my head, where at funerals they have a specific person dedicated. I think it's called a wailer. And I think that this culture will go through the streets, and there's one particular, I think it's a woman, that they will walk through the streets and they will be the one that they're assigned to cry the loudest so that others can essentially like match
Yeah.
that, and that like even if they want to cry more quiet. Think about it in the US, it's not a US culture. Think about it in the US, like we're all just so like, oh, we're gonna go in our own isolation and cry on our own, or like nobody else can see this. And in this culture, it's really beautiful, I think, to one, grieve in a community, and then also to have this permission of this anchor that's like, I'm gonna cry the loudest. You can cry as loud as you want, and like I will match that. I will always make sure that I'm gonna like raise that bar and give that bigger permission slip. So it's a really beautiful example in your life. I'm glad that you had that and that you gave it to other people.
Yeah, and I think what you just mentioned is one of the biggest things I teach anyone going through a breakup is the need for a community, because grief equals the natural nervous system response of grief is isolation, and it's the exact opposite of what we need. And of course, at moments you've got to just be in isolation and it's good to be alone. However, like majority of the time that you're feeling like not being around other people is when you need to be around other people in the grieving process, and letting like hopefully having people in your life that no matter how annoying you feel about repeating the same story about your ex or whatever, is to keep, talking to those people and being around them and forcing yourself in social situations, because we're not meant to grieve alone, and that is such a scary, big, hard emotion to feel. And so I really want to remind people to hopefully that you have people, and if not, there's grief circles, there's always ways to do it, or just be around other humans in general. Go outside into a
Yeah,
and physically it is co-regulation, just being around other people, even if you're not communicating
yeah,
with them. So yeah.
yeah. I've gained a lot more comfortability and confidence and just conviction that crying is okay
Mm.
throughout this process, because there are times where it's like I need to go grocery shopping and I'm crying.
Yep.
And hey, there are times where I have had people just there's yeah, what you're saying is like I'm walking through the grocery store and I'm just like, oh, and there's somebody that's around that I'm like, oh, I felt better after that. And it's like this movement through it, and I don't know how to describe it, but there's some alchemy that happens around other people. Like you said, it's that co-regulation, even if you don't know the person.
No, you don't need to. Yeah, that's the best part about our nervous
There's
system.
just something to it that kind of compassion exists.
Yes, I agree. And that's the beautiful part about our nervous systems, is they're always mirroring other people. So, and you can even co-regulate with a tree, like in nature, or an animal. And so going to dog park could be good for you if you're
Mhm.
feeling like you really don't have anyone in your life. And if you're, again, if you're needing to work and you work online, go to a co-working cafe and at least be around other human bodies. Because as someone that's, a solo entrepreneur, and I used to live by myself, you can go in a really dark hole and just stay there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And we need novelty. We haven't really covered this, but I think that it's important to recognize that you are going through in a breakup some of the most challenging psychological and physiological things that you do throughout life, and we're combining them all into one experience. I mean, we've talked about grief, like that in itself. If you have a close person in your life die, because oftentimes that is the case, right? We lose contact. They aren't in our lives anymore. Like there is a death there. So
yeah.
there's this grief happening, and that in itself could floor you, right? But then we also have withdrawal symptoms because we have all of the neurochemicals that are being ignited in us, serotonin, dopamine, like all the things are no longer there. And so we have physical withdrawals. Like we literally can see brain scans that when we are in love, the same regions of our brain that are triggered when you have an addict on cocaine or more serious drugs, like that is, or sugar even, it's the same parts of the brain that are lit up when you're in love. And so when that's not there, it's like you are going to go through physical and psychological withdrawals. So those are two things. Again, if you needed to go to rehab, that's a whole thing that could floor you. And then you're going through an identity crisis, which we talked about, and like that in itself could floor you. And then on top of that, we literally have the most, so one of the biggest like challenges that people report in life is like moving, because it's such a big uprooting situation. And a lot of the times you might have to be moving to a different city, moving to a different house, changing community on top of that. Like I know for this last relationship, I lost my partner's whole community that came with that, his family, all these people that I thought I was going to see, and then I don't anymore. Like think about how many things are happening at once, and each one of those alone
Yeah.
could floor you. And so I think just like having a bigger pot of compassion for yourself to be like, yeah, no wonder you're not over it yet. Like there's so many things happening at once. So yeah.
That's a really good point to, put it in perspective that way because I mean, my experience and almost everyone I've talked to, it feels like death, and I've experienced lots of death. It is the same feeling. And yeah, all those other layers, and there's even more than you just described too. And so, yeah, the compassion is really essential, and somehow trying to see if you can bring in things that bring some bit of joy, even just one smile, because it can be like we've talked about really dark and heavy because that's so many changes and transitions for your body, for your nervous system at once, and it can feel impossible to find joy or find happiness in those moments. And you gotta, for me, it was like I had to force myself, and there was very little that brought me much, but it at least would shift me in even the sliver, in the subtle ways, and that's what we want, is even just a subtle shift.
Yeah, it's really just the 10%. I think a lot of the times we're trying to jump across like it's like we need little stepping stones all along the way to get there. And it might seem so small. Like it might mean getting out of bed. It might mean showering. It might mean making sure that you're eating like just basics, you know. Sometimes that is all you need. Just keep the momentum going forward and go into the grocery store while you're crying. Like just sometimes that's like what you need. So yeah, my heart goes out to all the people that are hurting right now. It's just a kind of part of loving, but I do keep coming back to it's worth it in the end. Like, you know, it really is a transformative fire that we end up getting refined through. And I'm more in love with myself than I ever have been, you know, to where that came from the challenge and the hurt and all these pieces that I wouldn't have signed up for. It's just part of the love. It's the other side of the coin, you know, that it's a gift that's given in hard to open packaging. So, but yeah, so my heart goes out to all the people that are in the middle of it and maybe don't see that yet. They're just struggling with the packaging and don't see that it's a gift yet, you know?
Yes. Oof, I feel you, and I'm definitely sending my love as well. And it's something what you just mentioned is I remind all my clients to love is to also grieve, and it is the biggest risk you will ever take. That's why it feels so terrifying, and our nervous systems are doing everything possible to protect ourselves from actually opening up and being really vulnerable and allowing someone else to have your heart because you know that no matter what, 100% of the time, that person is going to leave your life, whether it's through breakup or death.
Mm,
And so it's going to hurt to love, and we need to learn how to hold all of it. And
mm,
yes, love is so magical, and it's also this grief. And so the more you can get comfortable with your grief, the more you're going to be able to love and, open up
mm.
again, because that was something that I notice a lot of my clients, they're like, well, I'm done. I'm closed up the shop where love is out of the picture. I tried that and I'm like, no, no, no. I mean, you two get to choose, and let's try not to do, the full defense mechanism. But yeah, you just have to
Mhm.
accept, it's an acceptance of you don't get to just have love without grief.
Yeah, yeah, it's just the other side of the coin. And I go with this. There's definitely been times where I wanted to say, I'm gonna just throw in the towel, thanks. But in the end, it always comes back. And I had a friend tell me she would check in like, how's the heart today? It's like, is it an open wound? Is it a blister? Is it calloused? Like kind of what's the texture of going on right now? And sometimes it's okay. Like, you know, you think about a blister, it's like you might need to have a band-aid over it, or like, yeah, we're gonna make it so that we're not just going straight back to a fire. You need time to heal, and like that's okay that there's some barriers up just naturally the way we heal. Like we think about it for our body, like yeah, we might need some barriers for a while that wound is raw, but eventually it will be calloused, or there, and it doesn't have to, callus doesn't have to be a bad thing. I
Mm-hmm.
think about the analogy of what do you love enough to build calluses over.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you play guitar a bunch, you have to love playing guitar because it makes you bleed a little bit. You know, like, and you have to build calluses around the like as you're going through the frets and things. So I really liked that analogy versus seeing calluses being this negative thing of like, oh, you're hardened now or something. It's like, well, what do you love enough to do enough times that you feel calloused about it, or like that there is a heart. Who was it? JB Copeland. He said the key, oh man, I might butcher it, but the key is to have tough skin and a soft heart. And I liked that. It's like, can you still soften your heart while also having tough skin and knowing that like grief and all these other things are going to happen and that like how can we move through life still? Yeah, with some tough skin. I think it takes a lot to love. It's a brave endeavor. Really is.
Yeah, it's definitely is. And I really, yeah, I want to emphasize too that there is no timeline. There's no recipe for how long it'll take you. Like I said, mine was at least a year and 5 months. I've had people that was shorter, and it doesn't, it's so unique. So just give yourself permission no matter where you're at on the timing of it all. And let's just because we're going to end this conversation soon, but I want to move it to I want you to share some exciting new energy that has come on your life, like maybe a fun date that you've been on recently. I know there's been some fun ones, or like this new energy that has kind of come in post the breakup.
Wow. Well, I mean, yeah, there's so much that's come in. And some of it I think is really just like it's almost like when you're in a relationship, there's so much like your container's full a lot of the time. And so it felt like having that container empty a bit created so much room for new experiences. And I mean, yeah, there's so much going right in my life in terms of where I live, the community I have, but I had to change all of that. I was living in a completely different place. I had a different community. I had like there's so much going on. Like my business has been even more thriving than it was when I was with him. Not to say that there wasn't some things that he did that helped, but I think there's almost a different kind of fire and space for creativity that comes out of sadness and challenge and grief. It's like, yeah, and there has been budding fun new energy around what it means to what is possible, like in terms of what you can bring in. And I think really the biggest piece is that recognizing that whatever is magnetized to you from what you're growing into, if that makes sense. Like the breakup itself is a catalyzing event that is truly forging you anew via the fire that is under your butt to just be like, and some of it's, yeah, hard to see in the moment,
Mhm.
but those new little glimmers of, wow, I'm attracting new scenarios, new opportunities, new kinds of people that come into my life, newness with that. Yeah, I don't know if there's like a specific, I don't want to share too much around like dating world because I mean, there has been some really cool people that have come into my life and things, and I'm just like private about that stuff. But just know like there's more possible than what I would have assumed for myself at the time, and it really does. What comes in changes as you change in better ways, you
Yeah.
know? Mhm.
So good and such a good reminder.
Yeah.
And the last question of the podcast is, what is one of your most favorite romantic memories you've had?
Oh my gosh. Thankfully, I've had a lot, which is really, I'm very grateful for that. Well, a recent one is, but again, it's so like, how many people are going to listen to this and just like hear it's vulnerable? But I had a really beautiful trip to Alaska and yeah, got to slow dance under the moonlight with a fire and just in the middle of nowhere, just like that's my happy place. I love Alaska. I love being out in nature and I love dancing and I love a man that can dance and I love being led in that way. And yeah, it was just like a really nice initiation on his part that he was the one that wanted to dance. And yeah, it was just like a lovely experience. And it felt like nature really held us as well. And like, our relationship was just like, it was that love in the moment. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't need to be anything more than what it was in that time. And
Yeah.
it was really just beautiful and romantic and in the, yeah, in the sharing of that together. So that was lovely.
I remember when you shared that moment with me in the moment and how much I felt for you. Like it was so romantic and beautiful. So I love that one.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. I don't
yeah,
know if it's like my favorite ever, but it was,
no,
it
it
was
doesn't need
a
to be.
recent one. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be there's not that pressure, but we just love hearing. It's always nice to end with romance because, I'm a lover girl. But anyways,
Hmm.
so thank you so much for sharing this conversation today. And I definitely want you to let everyone know where they can find you, what you're offering.
Sure. So you can find me on social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all the things. And it's at mind, period, psy, period, guidance. It's a little pun there. And then I have a couple of different things, but my signature offer is my Seven Sinners Life School. That's where you can learn the Seven Sinners system that I was talking about earlier. That's the routine and the system and model that I've created. And it really just helps you regulate your nervous system and bring your holistic health into balance. They're pretty easy to follow routine. It's got group calls and there's offer for one-on-ones, but then there's also a curriculum that you can have for life. And I really talk about it in a way that it's not this band-aid solution, but it's a practice to really integrate into your life that helps you bring what you know and put it into action. Because there's a lot of people in my audience and the world, because I know this, I've been this way myself, that you can learn so much and you're taking in so much, like you're reading everything, you're listening to all the podcasts like this, you're watching social media, and you're going to therapy, and then you just like know it all and you're having a hard time applying it. And so this program is something that really helps you implement what you know and in a way that's easy to follow, helps you stay accountable and all the things. So yeah, you can find, I have a free seminar that you can watch that gives you more information and kind of get you set up. And I'm sure that you'll link that down below. But yeah, sevensinnerslifeschool.com. And yeah, you can find all the things there. So
Highly recommend. She's amazing. Thank you so much
thank you.
for being here today.
Thank you.
You made it to the end of the episode, so now it's time for our snuggly heart breath of the day. Place a hand or both hands, if it's safe to do so, over your heart and take a big breath into your heart center. Open your mouth and let it go. I'm so grateful to have shared this time with you. If you enjoyed this convo, please share with your besties and your fam. And if you're a visual person like me, fly over to YouTube and watch the video. If you want to do a random act of kindness today, please leave a 5-star review so more people in the world can get their heart snuggled. You're helping tremendously when you do this, so thank you so much. And as a gift for doing so, I'll give you my Soften Your Heart Medi that feels like an exhale and a hug from within. When you leave a review and email me the screenshot to heartsnuggles@alivetoenjoy.com, you can also find the email in the show notes and you'll get the free meditation. Sending you the warmest, comfiest hug and lots of unexpected blessings your way. Remember that every single person just wants to be loved. So how can you be loved today?